Welcome in. We are getting more details today about how revenue from Wichita's proposed 1% sales tax would be spent.
Brock Wilson was at today's City Council meeting where specific guardrails were discussed. Brock, the City Council says it's making sure it's putting into writing how this money would be spent.
Yeah, that's right, Rachel. Mike, Wichita Forward outlined how revenue from the sales tax should be spent in its proposal, but up until now, that was their plan, not the city's. Well, today the City Council heard a presentation from the city manager about how this money could be spent.
Our role today is to be the resource, to serve as the education arm of this proposal.
Wichita City Council members taking criticism about trustworthiness to city staff members, asking them to put together a presentation on the 1% sales tax proposal.
Now that it's been presented, going to be on the ballot, it's the opportunity to make sure we have some clarity, and that's what we want to do today with some of the resolutions and different information.
Wichita City Manager Dennis Marstall was one of a number of city officials that spoke to council members about where that money would go. That includes
public safety capital improvement, revitalization of Century 2, an upgrade expansion convention center, a property tax relief effort, homeless and housing services, and then the development and construction of a downtown public performing arts center.
Funding for all of those initiatives outlined in this graph, showing exactly how much of the projected $850 million in revenue would go where. The most going toward the revitalization of Century 2.
An amount not to exceed $250 million of such tax applied to pay the cost for revitalization of Century 2, not to exceed $25 million, and upgrade and expanded convention center improvements not to exceed $225 million.
Followed by public safety, property tax relief, and homelessness. The city manager also outlining how the Community Sales Tax Oversight Committee would operate. It would make sure projects funded with the sales tax revenue are consistent with the will of the voters. All of those rules and others are a possibility if the sales tax passes. So what's next? Well, today was meant as an opportunity for city council members to discuss changes to the sales tax guardrails. No action was taken today. There will be a town hall, however, on February 10th where you can make your voice heard and council members will vote on those final guardrails. Rachel?
Brock, thank you.